crisis because it has disrupted fundamental values of the human race until the beginning of this process in the Western world, of the emergence of this concept that the 50% of the population can decide on what they want, and this is considered to be the best option available. And obviously it came out of very specific historical conditions. There is no denying that this conception is posited against totalitarianism. Like it's the opposite. It's black and white. Especially during the Cold War, the opposition between what was called the free world and the world behind the so-called Iron Curtain, and this was projected upon the entire human race to be the most important question facing humanity today. Whether you belong to the curtain behind the Iron Curtain, or you belong to the so-called free world, as if these are the only two options available to humanity. Is there a third option? Was there a third option before we got into this huge unipolar system of ideas where something very specific to the Western civilization, which arose out of specific historical conditions of the Western world, became the so-called universal value in politics? Was there another possibility? And the state of this tyranny of the 51% is such that the free world, the so-called free world, is functioning in a more or less stable way, but not because majority of people are participating in that, not because of the majority decision, but because the system is set up so that there is no possibility, there is absolutely no possibility of a third option available to people. This is the case in the United States of America, this is the case in Canada, this is the case in most of the Western world, in Europe, because both sides of the political spectrum, they are actually selling the same thing. You see this on a different level. When the Coca-Cola becomes problem in a given country, you put in a new brand, you call it Pepsi, but behind that is the same company. You just change the label. So both sides are selling the same ideology. They have more or less the same policies, but they have just changed the label because there is no third option. Which means a person who has insight, who has knowledge, who has basira, in Islamic terms, is equal to the one who doesn't have these qualities. Your vote is as good as the vote of an alim. The people who decide, people who are actually making laws for a given polity, people who are actually spending billions of dollars, throwing their countries into wars. They say we have been elected by the majority. Is that the case though? In the case of Canada, for example, the decision to send Canadian soldiers to Afghanistan in active combat was taken in a ballroom by one person, by the Prime Minister of Canada, without a single minute spent in the Parliament for such a fundamental decision. This is democracy. We saw millions of people walking on the streets of London, Paris, New York, all over the world against the Iraq war. Did anything happen? A small group of people decided that we want to do this, they did it. This is democracy. And this is being imposed. Now, what does it do to the spiritual aspect of the human condition? Have you heard, have you read, have you seen the blogs and the terrible, terrible descriptions of these soldiers who have come back from Iraq and from Afghanistan? What have they shown to the world? These people in the United States of America, these soldiers whose remains are being dumped in the landfill by the Air Force, by the US Air Force. The returning soldiers, there is absolute ban on public display of the returning dead bodies. Absolute ban. Everything is being done under secrecy, and because it costs so much now to die, it used to cost money to live, now it costs so much to die. These families have given permission to the army to dispose of the remains of their loved ones, of their husbands, of their brothers, and of their sisters, to put them in landfill. So they are incinerated, and their ashes and the remains are thrown in the landfill, and sometimes and always without the knowledge of the families. This is the outcome of this political system. We take the second, individual freedom. Individual freedom is another name for the tyranny of the nafs. I will never forget this Buddhist high-ranking Lama I met in Portugal a few years ago. And a lady stood up and she said, before we could not do what we wanted to do. Now we have freedom. I can do whatever I want. And he said very peacefully, is it really freedom, or is it the slavery of your nafs now, of your soul? That you are enslaved, but you don't know that you are enslaved. And whatever your soul tells you to do, the society gives you the ability to do so, and you call it freedom. But you are enslaved because you have not even the enlightenment. You don't have the inner resources to discover that what you are doing is not freedom, but you are being just told by your soul. In Islamic terms, we will call it the tyranny or the enslavement of the nafs. So if the society allows this, to happen, we call it freedom. But if the society in general has restrictions based on not human law, but based on the divine law, we call it oppression. How is it oppression? I also remember very clearly, just before they started to bomb Afghanistan, there was an Afghan brother who came to the United States of America. He was on the public radio stations, etc. And they were all talking about the oppression of the Afghan woman to him. One reason for the attack that was given to the media, at least, was that we are going to bring freedom to the Afghan woman. They are very, very oppressed. And this man, this young fellow, he was an Afghan, he said, actually, you know what happened to me? When I came and I landed at New York, and I went to the city and I saw your woman, and I saw the billboards, and I saw that you sell nothing unless the face or the body of the woman is on the advertisement. I felt oppressed. I felt that you have oppressed your woman.
Maulana, how would you, just a question here, quick question, because it might arise in people's minds. Because you talked about the political situation in the West, but a lot of my colleagues at university would say we have such crisis because, at these high positions in the States and UK are these very religious figures whom, although they kill thousands and millions, but they do it in the name of their faith. They keep it in that context. They're not saying we're doing this because of our own ego or whatever. They put it in that context. So it becomes a double-edged sword, really, in a sense.
No, that's not correct that they said they do it in the name of religion, because it is illegal in the United States of America to do anything in the name of religion. Religion is banned from the public space in the United States of America. The US Constitution bans any action on the basis of religion in that capacity. So what you are saying is that perhaps privately they are religious people, but they cannot claim that they have never claimed that they have done anything in the name of religion. They are doing it, if you remember, every time, and even now, there are two lies that are given. Number one, this is to protect our values. Number two, this is to bring freedom to these countries. These are the two reasons given. There is never the reason of doing it in the name of religion.
But it's really difficult to dissociate them from religion.
No, it is, because it is not difficult, because at a certain level it is difficult, and at a certain level it is not. Because privately, yes, privately these people have strong religious beliefs, but officially they cannot proclaim those beliefs.
But it's just how religion functions in the United States. There's even a term, a sociological term. It's a civil religion, so it doesn't necessarily has to be expressed, on any official governmental level. But it's still there. I mean, as someone who comes from the Soviet Union with our atheist background, the first thing that struck me is, all these speeches that politicians make in the United States, all these references to God. It's almost like a Bismillah in our context here.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand what you're talking about, but I think the religious substratum is still there, and you cannot just ignore it.
In their private beliefs, yes, but it has it ever been officially acknowledged? In the name of, we are doing this in the name of Christianity?
Constitutionally, they cannot, but you look at, for example, you remember stories in the press, like they discover the shell of the unexploded bomb, and they have references to the book of Revelation there. I mean, somebody is doing it, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that it happens by accident. Okay?
Right.
So religion is there, and...
Yeah, and even the advisors to the president, you can see, because they're writing, they're publishing their memoirs and things. You can see that there is a direct link. I accept if you say that there's a misunderstanding or misappreciation of the foundations of faith by certain individuals, right? And they take it to an extent where it doesn't really apply. But the religion is not taken out of it altogether. At the moment, you see, you can see it, you can read about it, you can, the accidental reference to Christian terminology in their speeches is not accidental at all. In fact, there is a ideology beyond what they're doing. I mean, in London, I know Blair was even outright in what he was doing. The Christian aspect to link to that. I'm not putting the Islam and Christianity opposing each other in this particular issue. I'm just saying that the political figures take religion as a tool in order to achieve their aims.
All right.
Yeah, like in the White House, didn't they used to start the day, under President Bush with a prayer in the White House? That was a normal routine, pretty much.
I just would like to add very to what my colleague has said, that if we speak about Bush's administration, we have a direct link to some very specific Protestant doctrines, not the Christianity exactly, but some doctrines called dispensationalism. It is a Christian sect very close to Zionism, so-called Christian Zionists. So they are motivated by their religious slogans. They may be just distorted. The essence, maybe just the essence of Christianity may be distorted in this teaching and these slogans. But in fact, if we refer to Mr. Bush, we know that in some sense he is very religious. He is maybe a fanatically religious person, and his hatred maybe towards Muslim world or maybe other parts of Christian world that do not share such an understanding has a specific religious background.
All right. No, that's fine. No, it's not questioned. It's a different way of understanding the same thing, which means that what you are saying is, in essence, and both of you are 100% correct, that in essence the religious beliefs are operative, although they have been wiped out from the official documents, which is correct. Finally, we have the third major pillar of the modernity, that is the so-called free market enterprise. And I always say that, have you ever tried to fix a plumbing problem in your house in the Western world, if you are living in the Western world? Have you ever tried to find a product that does not ultimately belong to the same company with different names? It's the tyranny of the rich. There is a recent study about poverty in Canada and those who have fallen below, and these are millions. These are millions of people out of a very small population. They're huge geographical country with tremendous resources available. And 1/4 of the Canadian population is struggling with staying above the line, the poverty line. This is a huge number of people. And in other countries, the situation is not different either. What happens is that the resources of the land are controlled by a very, very small group of people. And this has been the case ever since, especially in North America, ever since this continent came under the white rule. Especially in Canada, the legal framework was set up so that the resources concentrate within that small group of people. So these three things then result in what we call material civilization of the contemporary world. Material civilization of the is propped up on the strength of technological power. Its reach is extensive. Its control and exploitation is extensive. These are figures from the United Nations studies. 3 billion human beings are struggling to survive on less than $2 a day. 1.2 billion of these subsist on less than $1 a day. These are huge numbers of human beings living on this earth. Since the 1950s, nearly 2 million hectares of land, which comprise 23% of all cropland, pasture, forest, and woodland, have been degraded. Every decade, another 5% of tropical forests are being destroyed. More than a third of the biodiversity is squeezed into habitat fragments covering just 1.4% of Earth's surface and could vanish if these fragments are lost. This is sadly also the case, and there is no separation of Islamic world or Muslim world and the non-Muslim world from these general figures. You see this in Tehran as well, this urban jungle. Why are millions of people moving? The addition of 2 billion people to the world's population over the last 30 years and the urban migration have produced crowded cities which are unable to sustain their populace because of poor infrastructure. These places were not meant to be the habitat of 1/5 of Iran's population, for example, Tehran. That's not that. There is no natural reason for people to crowd in small urban centers and make these urban cities like jungles where Sister Rebecca the other day she mentioned very graphically how people live in these little coops. You know, they wake up and they have their routines and they have their own circles, but they don't ever get out of this urban jungle. And they have lost touch with nature. Even the air is unhealthy here. Look at these masks. There is absolutely no reason for us to have this kind of air. So we have a world dominated by all kinds of dimensions of living, some of which I have mentioned and some of which I have not mentioned, which add to the spiritual crisis of which we are talking about. So if somebody is wondering why are we talking democracy and free market economy and other aspects of politics, the reason is that human beings, as we discussed yesterday, they are not just a spirit. Otherwise we'll be angels. We wouldn't have any need for sitting here and eating and talking. We are affected by the outer environment. We are affected by that. And now we can appreciate why we call this crisis, because none of this existed. These urban jungles did not exist before the Renaissance. People lived in different small communities. The reach of the technology was not as it is today. Look at this room. Just look at this room. Look at the amount of technology that is in this room. The way we are talking, the way we are structured, that is deeply affecting our spiritual experience of the moment. There were discussions on this state of spiritual state of people 500 years ago in this city, perhaps in the same physical location. Without all of this, people were sitting together on a carpet Look at the plastic and look at the disposable. Just here. Every single day when I take a shower in this hotel and I say, look, this wrap that I'm opening up, somebody has put this little piece of soap bar into this. What is this wrapping paper made of? Why is it necessary for every little piece of thing to be wrapped in this plastic, semi-plastic that's going to go into the dump? These are the resources of this earth. Why do we have to use these resources like this? We have developed a civilization that is civilization of disposables. We say this has made our life easy because it doesn't require washing. We just use this cup and we throw it out. And millions of these cups are being thrown out every day. Millions all over the world. What are we doing to the resources of this earth? Who decided this? I remember our own childhood, perfectly livable, perfectly manageable, without any of this. This is just 30, 40 years ago. Those utensils, those beautiful utensils made of real material like metal, like clay, which could be used over and over. The intake from the earth's resources is now tremendous. It's like a maddening race. And nobody needs to do this. In our own personal lives, we don't have to do this. I really feel that this dominance of the shaitan, of this consumption, this consumption mafia that is controlling the world, that is destroying the very place which is supposed to sustain human race, the earth itself. And all of this is going to affect us and our children. So, this is the very important aspect of this whole session, warp time. And I would like to end this session actually, for the break, with the beginning of this. This I find to be the most important facet of the spiritual crisis, the notion of time. Our progress narrative tells us that we are progressing, that human race is progressing. We are evolving, we are getting better every day. Now, I would like to know how many people in this room believe that with time we are evolving, getting better. In other words, the direction of time is upward. The direction of time is upward. That is, our today is better than yesterday. In terms of the quality of life on this planet, in terms of human progress, in terms of human happiness, in terms of sound living. How many people really believe that the direction of time, is it clear? The direction of time is upward. It's evolutionary. We start here. Yes. Do you believe time is any quality of time? Is it improving? Is human race going upward or downward in terms of quality?
What do you mean by the quality of time?
Yes. In the spiritual sense, the day that comes, every falling day, in terms of, you see, the time has two aspects. We talked yesterday about two aspects of time. Time is linear, it's quantity. As I said yesterday, what date is today? The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he asked at the farewell sermon, what day is today? Which city is this? So there is a linear aspect of the time. Today is, for example, according to one system of measuring time that we use, is the 2nd or 3rd of January. I'm always there is, and this you would those who are into literature, Joyce, Stephen Dedalus, wherever he goes on that particular day, a portrait of the artist as a young man. There is a play on the watch. He goes and he sees watches everywhere in the city, and every watch has a different time. And then he says, history is a nightmare, and I'm trying to wake up from that. So time itself, is it going upward? The quality of time, is it improving? In other words, is it the progress narrative, not in almost in absolute terms, in given everything else? You don't understand? Okay, you don't have to. That's fine. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yes.
I understand what you're saying, as in from reading Martin Bernal's Black Athena, he said that the idea of progress again began in the Renaissance, as he says, with the importation of technologies from China and the Muslim world. So Europe started to feel it was progressing, and strangely this is now, I don't know, people have got a real blind spot. But there's just one or two things about, obviously we know that the world has become, there's been an attempt for things to become more equal in some ways. For example, in the very centuries past, with regard to spirituality, often spiritual training was very restricted to an elite. Ancient Egypt, they had the mystery schools, and perhaps even very often, there was this division between the educated elite and the peasantry. And even within that educated elite, women would not be admitted either. So, and I think perhaps with the attempt to get rid of this kind of elite and make everything a level playing field for everybody, at the same time it's opened up sort of horizons where there are no boundaries anymore. So it's a bit of a dilemma, because we don't want to return back to a kind of elite gentry, sort of secret societies of high-class men that are only admitted to these mysteries. But on the other hand, we don't want, as you say, the decline in quality of learning among a larger population. So.
Yes.
Because Rebecca sort of presented it empirically, but I think you also get the same, in religious terms, which is to say that along with the narrative of the fall, you also have the narrative of salvation. Now, this salvation is never simply a return to the pristine past when you have just one couple, man and woman, Adam and Eve. It includes something else, some additional elements. And these elements particularly, we get them in the messages that we receive through Revelation. In the prophetic messages for Christians, and the message of Jesus, and these messages are not just about, we cannot return to being just, two people, two individuals, man and woman. There's a certain society that has emerged. And we cannot even say that this society hasn't been planned initially by the Creator, right? Because that was the whole point in creating the man and the woman. So there is this additional element, emphasis on the society and on social justice, which is part of religion as we have it. So I think that's what Rebecca is talking about.
But the salvation was not back to the couple, but the salvation is back to the Creator. That fall, especially in the Christian aspect of it, because Islam has a fundamentally different aspect of the fall from Christianity. In terms of the sin narrative, Islam is fundamentally. This is one of the two major differences between Islam and Christianity.
Also differs. It depends which type of Christianity you're talking about.
Well,
Western, Eastern.
Yes.
Like in the Orthodox tradition, sin is treated differently.
But salvation means not going to the original couple. There is no. It is unearthly existence. It's going back to the Creator in another kingdom, kingdom of heaven, rather than kingdom of earth.
Yeah, but that's the thing, that it's a kingdom, so it's a new social structure.
But the king there is not an earthly king.
Of course.
The kingdom of heaven means the divine kingdom.
Of course, but what I'm saying, even like if you take the notion of the Creator, at least in Christianity and Judaism, creation never stops, right? I mean, God still creates,
right.
Even through His revelation, He adds something to the
right.
universe,
right?
Even if it is just a message. But this message is, full of potentiality to be materialized in various social forms.
So going back.